When you first started, John, did you think you were going to make it into a bigger world, or did you expect? No. You didn't sort of have visions of becoming a BBC person.
No, because it didn't appear like that. Podcasting was such a slightly odd, if not slightly mad thing to be seen to be doing. There were like 7 people on Broadcaster when I signed up, and we were going, oh, so you're doing it. It was like a weird little club of people who were doing something quite strange. And it grew quite quickly in the States, but it grew gradually here. It wasn't until like a year and a half in that, say, Britcaster became unwieldy.
Yes.
You know, there were too many people suddenly who were interested in this, and it gained legitimacy. So, no, I didn't have that expectation.
One of the things I was curious at is that when some people started, they felt that they were going to make it, and they're going to be adopted by a big organisation, whether it's a music organisation or whether it's a journalist or whatever. They're going to become big. Yeah. Whereas I think now the perception is they're not going to make it big. Similarly, the way that a music artist feels that they've succeeded when they got their first recording deal. Yeah. Nowadays, you don't have to do that. You just cut out the middleman. You know, there's the audience. I'll talk to them directly, not via someone else. Yeah. That's the big difference I see with this. Is that, you know, even internally, you know, you don't have to go to get fancy editing done. You just say, I want to talk about something. Record it. It's on. Yeah, it's there. Exactly. That to me is key.
I mean, there are people that would like to and will move into the mainstream as a result of their activities in video blogging or podcasting or whatever. But I also think it's partly about creating the mainstream. If you see, I mean, what's mainstream now is not what's going to be mainstream in 5 years, and where we were 3 years ago. Now we're almost in the mainstream effectively. Yeah. So I think in 5 years' time it will be even more like that. The people that have adopted this technology and they're doing it will just be part of the furniture because the structures will develop around them. And I mean, whether they'll be making money, you know, sort of, people won't be turning into sort of, you know, Richard Dimbleby or Jeremy Paxman or something as a result of podcasting. But podcasting will produce its own little people who other people want to listen to for those reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the media evolves as well. I mean, because one of the things, you can think of a large number of examples of old media companies trying to do new media like podcasting, but doing it in an old media way and just failing abysmally. Yeah. And then there are some of those organisations, and I think the BBC is one of them, I think the Guardian's another one, where they are embracing podcasting. And actually they're doing a great job of it. Yeah. I mean, certainly the Guardian, I mean, I listen to their Media Talk podcast, and, you know, they've got a whole Facebook thing going, and it's a collaborative experience for them rather than just another way of them broadcasting their opinion out to the world. And I think that's the important thing. Whereas, you know, people like the Times, I don't think they've caught on to that extent. Some of their stuff, I've not listened recently, I have to say, but in the last few months, I mean, certainly it was very much, I'm going to read you the article that I've just written. Well, no.
Why do you think like the BBC, for example, have embraced podcasting? Do you think it's because they genuinely believe it's a way of getting to a larger audience, or is there very much a case of, well, there's lots of other people doing it, let's have an experiment with it to see if it's a way of delivering content in a different way? I
think they have the culture to understand podcasting. A lot of the grassroots people that make audio in the BBC just simply love creating audio. And you know, guys like Chris Vallance, he's a hobbyist as well. Yeah. I mean, he has that simple love of just plugging in a microphone and capturing spontaneous, interesting things. Yeah. Talking to people, you know, creating something. And I think that's why the Beeb are good at it, because they have enough people in there that get that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have to declare my hand at this point. I'm a massive BBC fan. I mean, I've lived abroad for 10 years, and I've lived without the BBC for 10 years, and so I actually value it quite highly.
We want to come back,
and it's, you know, I think there's a lot in there. I think that if they felt that they didn't do it, they would get beaten up for not doing it. Yeah. But also, I think the way that they've extended their podcasting now, so it is, you know, it's becoming much more pervasive across their radio shows. They're really beginning to get the new media as an embellishment to the old media and push that. I think it's been a great success for them.
But I kind of think that it's the same audience that will be listening to the radio. They're also listening to them on podcasts.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if you look at iTunes, for example, what's the number one podcast almost in every single category? It's by and large a BBC podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's Melvin Bragg and Andrew Marr and all the Radio 1 DJs and Moyles and all that lot. And they all seem to be all the number one podcasts across the whole kit and caboodle. But and that's partly quality as well, I think.
Well, it's partly quality, but also I wonder if we're now beginning to see a shift in the consumption of that audio media. It's a time-shifting world now, isn't it? I mean, it's like, you know, I've got a DAB radio at home, and I've also got some software that records the radio streams. So I very rarely listen to the radio live. I'll listen to the shows that I like when I want to, and I think podcasting gives you that flexibility.
Okay. definitely.
So let's talk about the future of podcasting. I mean, one of the things as a podcaster that frustrates me is it's a fairly dumb medium in that it's an audio stream, and I live in a high-tech, gadgety kind of world, and I'd love to be able to embellish it more, and I'm sure the Apple fans in the audience will be screaming at me about enhanced podcasts. Well, yeah, fine. We'll get there one day. What do you think the future holds for podcasting? And Pete, what about you?
I don't really know in the sense of I just think it's entirely content driven. I mean, what content do we want to see? I'm not too bothered about where the medium is going. I just want to know what content we want to have. And the thing is, if you had you've got interactive TV with a red button and all that sort of stuff. You get some sort of interactive. It's not obviously interactive. And I think the one thing you could do with podcasting is make it a bit more interactive and make it a bit more feedback to the listener straight away. Yeah. So a couple of examples of people I know that have already done this, that have recorded their podcast at a known time and had people phone in and deal with the feedback that way. Another way of doing it is to use a couple of services to take phone calls in. So somebody will ring in and say, your podcast was rubbish. Yeah. And you feed that into the same RSS feed. And then so the listener listens to this, and then 5 seconds after they're finished, they get some Joe Soap from whatever that says your podcast was rubbish. And they go, yeah, it was rubbish. There's interaction like that. I think that would be quite good. But the difficulty I see with the podcasting is how many thousands of people listen to Moyles and how many tens of people bother to email him or phone him. Right. So with an audience that is so much lower in podcasting, you're not going to get much feedback. So my main concern when I went with John on a couple of podcasts, my first comments was, how do you get more feedback? Talk to the guys that get more feedback. Yeah. And what the simple answer is just get used to it. You're not going to get much.
No, exactly.
And that's the hard part, is you want that positive reinforcement. Does it make any sense? Is anybody listening? Do they care? And you just get used to it. So any new podcast that anybody that wants to listen to Unacademy Mobile, just do it. Just keep doing it. Yeah. Eventually you'll get an audience, and eventually you'll go back to your back catalogue and go, wow. Yeah. That's the bit for me. Does that mean there's something new in the medium itself? I don't think so. I think it's just having the engaging content people want to listen to, and they'll listen to it. Yeah. However it's delivered. Yeah.
Tony, what about you?
Being so new at it, I'm not sure I can add very much to what Pete said. I think that we talk about chaptering and that kind of stuff. I think there needs to be an extension or somewhere for him. I'm not sure it's going to be the Apple-based format that's going to be the one that's going to go mainstream. It has to be a lot broader than that. Yeah. So there has to be a kind of new version of MP3. Because even though we've got WMA and AICC and all that other kind of stuff, MP3 is still MP3 is still the way people deliver this content because it's completely universal. Yeah. How or who takes that MP3 format and allows us to kind of do a bit more with it, above ID3 tagging, for example, is something that I think probably needs to be done. Yeah. Because we are seeing people, now kicking out podcasts that are over an hour long, and it's like a documentary.
No, exactly.
Or it's like another kind of. So it's a bit like television, but without ad breaks. Yeah, exactly. And those chapters allow you to have kind of, or potentially maybe you do have ad breaks like commercial radio. Yeah. I don't know, but I think there needs to be a way of being able to break up that kind of content, maybe. Yeah. But I think the other thing we'll see more of is just the cost of the technology you need to be able to create podcasts will just keep going down and down and down and down and down. Yeah. And you can see a time when podcasting type technology is implicitly built into all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah.